Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur Atira Muhammad Ghazali. So today I would like to present about my research, which the title is Factors Affecting Unemployment Rate in Philippines. So first of all, what is an unemployment? According to the COS 2005, unemployment can be defined as a people who doesn't job or jobless, or a situation that happen when the people are effective in doing business or individual without work. Also, according to CHEPLO 2020, when people are actively seeking for a job or work, is also called as unemployment. The developments of economic growth is mainly contributed by the employment rate. Other than that, employment rate is very vital to the economic growth because of it will be the source of income of the country. However, in December 2019, the pandemic COVID-19 has spread around the world, and the COVID-19 issue has turned the global economy, health, job and income to critical issue of millions of people around the world, as according to Nation 2020. Around March 2020, about 10 million people are unemployed, with COVID-19 still spread around the world. This also includes the East Asia and Asia Pacific. The increase in unemployment rate from 3.8% in 2019 to 4.3% in 2020. The COVID-19 has affected the unemployment rate for selected country, which is Philippines. The unemployment rate for the country also slightly increased 2.2% in 2019 to 2.52% in 2020, as according to World Bank 2020. There are 5 research objectives as according to this slide. It is to investigate the relationship between economic growth, inflation, population, wages, and suicide cases toward the rate of unemployment in Philippines. The scope for this research is focusing on how the independent variables, which are economic growth, inflation, population, wages, and suicide cases, can influence the dependent variable, which is unemployment rate. There is 1 dependent variables and 5 independent variables, as I mentioned earlier. Also, the country selected is Philippines, and there will be 30 observations, which is from the year 1990 until 2020. There are 3 limitations of the study when I conducted this research, such as inadequate data and information, finding the right independent variables, and lack of previous studies in chosen areas. In this research, I have used 5 theoretical findings, which is Okun's law, Keynesian theory, Malthusian theory, wages theory, and psychodynamic theory. As you can see here, this is a theoretical and empirical findings for each DV and IV. As for theoretical framework, let's look at the figure on your left. This figure has shown the relationship between the variable in this research, which are independent and dependent variable. Furthermore, as for hypothesis developments, let's look at the table on your right. As you can see here, there are 2 types of hypotheses, which are null and alternative hypothesis. The HO represent the null hypothesis, while the HA represent the alternative hypothesis. Each of the independent variable consists of these 2 hypotheses. Next, I am showing you the proxy for each of the variable. Now we have reached the crucial part of this research, which is finding and analysis. As for the rule of thumb, implies that if VIF is more than 5, there is an existence of multicollinearity, hence we need to eliminate the IV. The upper left side picture shows that the center VIF for all except the GDP are above 5%. Thus, I need to eliminate the higher center VIF, which is CPI. As for Philippines, I need to rerun the data 2 times until I get all the independent variable below 5%. The variable left for VIF are GDP, populations, and suicide cases. Secondly, I have run the Derby-Watson first series correlation test by looking at the value of Derby-Watson statistic, which is 0.98. It seems that it does not fall within the range of 1.5 to 2.5. This indicates that the series correlation between the error term exists. Therefore, I need to run the Bruce-Godfrey test, which is a second order for a series correlation test. As for Bruce-Godfrey test, Philippines shows a result of 1.76, which is within the range of 1.5 to 2.5. Therefore, I have enough evidence to reject the HO, which the error term residual do not suffer a severe series correlation at second order. Thirdly, the normality test. The normality test for Philippines shows the p-value of Hakabera is 0.48, which is more than 10%. Therefore, I do have enough sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis, and I may conclude that the residual is normally distributed for sample of this time series model. Let's move on to the multiple regression analysis. As for t-statistic, the only variable that resulted in significant level at 1% is population, which the confidence level is 99%. Therefore, I can conclude that the only population proxy by population rate has a very strong relationship in influencing the unemployment rate in Philippines. Next, the adjusted R-square is 0.7705. It indicates that 77.05 of the variations in the dependent variable can be explained by the independent variable, which is populations in the model. The remaining 22.95% is due to omissions of other important independent variables. And lastly, for the F-test, based on the F-test, I have enough evidence to reject the H-null hypothesis because the p-value of 0.000 is less than 1%. Therefore, I can conclude that there is a significant relationship between at least one of the macroeconomic variable with the unemployment rate in Philippines. For the implication of the study, there are 4 significant, such as significant to central bank as a policymaker, significant to existing and potential investor, significant to future research, and lastly, significant to public relation. Let me explain one by one about the significance. The significant to central bank as a policymaker. It helps the central bank to increase the employment by understanding better about the inflations and how the inflation affect the unemployment rate of a country. Secondly, significant to existing and potential investor. It can give the investor an additional information about the unemployment rates and determine which factor contribute to the unemployment based on the macroeconomic factor. And thirdly, significant to future research. This research contribute to future researcher as we already identify various factors and theory such as Ocon law theory, Keynesian theory, Malthusian theory, and efficiency wage model and psychodynamic theory. And lastly, significant to public relation. Research enables us to engage in communications with the public, learning about their ideas and values and trying to increase their knowledge of the organization internal working and policy. Since this research is aimed to investigate the relationship between the dependent variable, which is unemployment rates, and independent variables, it can conclude that the population proxy by population rate is the important factor for the unemployment rate in Philippines, as it is the only and most significant variables. As for recommendation for future research, I recommend the future research work to add more independent variables and use more data and number of observations. As I mentioned earlier, only one independent variable is significant in this variable for this country, which is Philippines. If there are more independent variables variable is applied, the researcher can obtain an accurate finding. Other than that, the researcher could collect and use the monthly data basis instead of yearly basis data. This is because the monthly data produce more data and the researcher are able to obtain consistency and credible result. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.